Hey everyone, welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving into something absolutely fascinating, the actual, literal biology of willpower. You know, we aren't just looking at your standard motivational quotes today. We're getting into the source material that blends hard, cutting-edge neuroscience with lived experience, street-smart philosophy. We're going to see what actually happens inside the brain when we push through serious adversity. So here's a question we've all probably asked ourselves when looking at someone who just seems unstoppable, right? Are some people just born with a strong mind? Is mental toughness just a random genetic gift, kind of like height or eye color? Man, it's so tempting to believe that. But today's research challenges that myth head on, showing us that willpower is definitely not a lottery ticket. It's a muscle. Okay, let's dive right into this. Here's our roadmap for today. First, we'll hit the neuroscience of willpower. 2, the illusion of effort. 3, navigating what's called the lonely chapter. 4, the 1-second decision. And finally, capping success. All right, moving to section 1, the neuroscience of willpower. So, neuroscientists are pointing to this specific brain structure called the anterior mid-cingulate cortex, or AMC for short, and they're identifying it not just as the seat of willpower, but honestly, perhaps the will to live. But here is the crucial and frankly somewhat terrifying mechanism. It literally only gets bigger when you do things you actively do not want to do. It's the friction itself that causes the physical growth. The dynamics of this are just incredible. If you've ever felt like your willpower is small, well, biology actually validates you. In obese individuals, the baseline AMC is smaller, but when they actively resist cravings, it physically grows. Athletes, on the other hand, naturally have a larger baseline. And people who overcome extreme traumatic challenges, they see massive growth. So willpower isn't just a concept, it's an anatomical reality. But here is the catch. As quickly as you build it up, if you stop doing hard things, it shrinks right back down. To borrow a sticky phrase originally about addiction, there's a cure. The problem is it only works one day at a time. Willpower is totally perishable. Even if you sit in a freezing ice bath every single day, the moment you start enjoying it, your AMC stops growing. Which brings us to section 2, the illusion of effort. Let's say you absolutely love the gym. You lift heavy, you sweat, you strain. That's high effort, right? But because you actually enjoy it, you get exactly 0 AMC growth. Compare that to stepping into a freezing ice bath when you absolutely dread the cold. That specific hatred, that generates massive AMC growth. And this brilliantly illustrates that effort alone isn't enough. The suck, the sheer friction of the task, is the mandatory ingredient here. 2, that is the absolute maximum number of major goals you should really focus on in a given year. Think of your willpower capacity kind of like a buffet. People walk in, pile their plates ridiculously high with everything in sight, and just assume their stomach will magically expand to fit it all. Well, it won't. Overcooking your goals practically guarantees failure. Because to achieve something incredibly difficult, you really have to embrace subtraction. In order to pick something up, you have to put something down. You literally cannot build massive new habits without budgeting your biological energy. If you want to change careers or, say, run a marathon, you have to actively take away old comforts to make space for that new friction. All right, section 3, the lonely chapter. Whenever you embark on serious personal growth, you are absolutely going to hit this specific phase. It's the phase where you become too developed to resonate with your old friends, but you haven't quite built a new circle yet. And man, it's incredibly isolating. If your friends are staying up late gaming and your alarm is suddenly set for 5 a.m., you just don't speak the same dialect anymore. And that friction of leaving familiar environments will totally tempt you to regress just to feel connected again. There's a concept from a Jeff Bezos shareholder letter that captures the biological cost of this chapter perfectly. He wrote, "Differentiation is survival and the universe wants you to be typical." Think about that. Every environment demands equilibrium. Fighting that pull to regress to the mean is exhausting. The universe wants you to be typical, so becoming atypical is actually supposed to be hard. Moving on to section 4, the 1-second decision. I want you to imagine a moment of absolute maximum friction. For Navy SEAL David Goggins, it's Hell Week, 130 continuous hours of intense suffering. Just picture yourself in the freezing Pacific Ocean water. At this point, the rational brain literally shuts off. Fight or flight is just screaming at you to find warmth, to ring the bell and quit. You completely forget your why. All that matters is escaping the pain. And that overwhelming urge to quit, it happens in one single overpowering second. But if you can control that 1 second, you literally control your life. So here is the cognitive framework to bypass that emotional urge to quit. Step 1, stay physically in the friction. Just hold your body in place. Step 2, mentally project yourself out of the suffering. Visualize yourself at the finish line, totally separated from the physical panic so you can actually think logically. And step 3, analyze the long-term regret of quitting. Because here is the absolutely crucial realization. The future is so much longer than the now. People constantly trade a couple of days of temporary pain for decades of mental anguish. If you quit, sure, tomorrow you'll be warm, but you're going to spend the next 40 years haunted by the fact that you gave up. You've got to use that mental time travel to bundle up all that unfelt future shame and use it to overpower your current desire for comfort. And finally, Section 5, capping success. You know, society judges us pretty strictly on observable metrics, right? The job title, the salary, the bank balance. But focusing solely on those can actually destroy your hidden metrics. Things like inner peace, mental toughness, and quality time with your family. If you trade a longer commute for more money, sure, you gain observable success. But statistically, your hidden metric of happiness is going to plummet. Comfort just wraps around you, quietly shrinking your AMC right back down to nothing. So to prevent success from making you soft, you have to practice something called trained humility. Take the true story of William Crawford. This guy won the Medal of Honor, literally the highest military award for heroics. Yet later in life, he quietly worked as a janitor at the Air Force Academy, just cleaning toilets for cadets who had absolutely no idea who he was. He took his highest achievement, put it in the closet, and picked up a broom. You have to intentionally cap your success to make sure you never lose touch with the hunger that built you in the first place. We also have to be incredibly careful of this deferred happiness fantasy, often called the provisional life. It's that dangerous, creeping feeling that you're just getting through your current duties and that your real happy life will miraculously begin sometime in the future. Don't wait for that. Problems are a feature of life, not a bud. If you're waiting for a day with absolutely no friction to finally be happy, you are quite literally wasting the one life you have. So, we arrive at the core truth of all this research. There is no biological hack. You don't find peace by avoiding hardship. You find it directly inside the battle. You find it repeatedly in the suck, in those exact moments where you force your brain to grow by doing exactly what it begs you not to do. The hardship itself isn't a bug. It's the feature where your true identity is forged. We've explored the neuroscience, the illusion of effort, and the lonely chapter. So I want to leave you with this final, provocative question to ponder. When your moment of maximum friction inevitably arrives and every fiber of your being is screaming at you to quit, what will you choose to do with your 1-second decision? Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you next time.